What would you do if a little girl walked up to your table and said, "Can I eat with you?" Most people would turn away. But what this man did shocked everyone in the room. Thomas was the kind of man who had everything money could buy, except happiness. $1 million bank account, expensive suits, the best table at any restaurant, but always dining alone. That night was no different until he saw her. She couldn't have been more than 7. No shoes, hair messy, a small, worn-out stuffed bear clutched tight in her arms. She walked right up to his table, eyes wide, and whispered, "Can I eat with you?" The clink of silverware around them stopped. People turned in their seats. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some stared at her in disgust, others in pity. Thomas didn't move for a second. Then, without saying a word, he pulled out the chair beside him. "Sit." She climbed up slowly, as if ready to run at the first sign of rejection. Her little hands rested on the edge of the table. Then she looked him straight in the eyes, and said something that made Thomas stop mid-breath. Before that night, Thomas thought nothing could surprise him anymore. He'd built a fortune from nothing. The cars, the penthouse, the tailored suits, all trophies he thought would fill the emptiness. But inside, he was still the boy who learned early that no one was coming to save him. That's why he froze when the girl looked at him. Because he recognized that look. The one you get when you've been turned away too many times, and you're bracing for it to happen again. Before he could say anything, a voice cut through the room. "She's been walking around asking people for food all night," a man said loudly. Heads turned. Whispers grew sharper. Then a woman near the bar added, "Watch your wallets. Kids like that don't just beg, they steal." The girl's shoulders sank. She hugged the stuffed bear tighter, eyes fixed on the table. A waiter appeared at Thomas's side, lowering his voice. "Sir, do you want me to have her removed?" Thomas's jaw tightened. He looked from the waiter to the girl and back again. What he said next would decide everything. Thomas knew he had two choices. He could nod to the waiter, send her away, and finish his steak in peace. Or he could do the one thing no one in that room expected. He looked at the waiter. "Bring her whatever she wants. And make it quick." Gasps rippled across the room. The girl's eyes darted between Thomas and the kitchen door, as if unsure this was real. When the plate finally arrived, warm bread, soup, and a slice of pie, she just stared at it. Her small fingers hovered over the spoon, but didn't move. "Eat," Thomas said gently. She shook her head. "Eat slowly," he added, sliding the plate closer. "There's plenty." She picked up the spoon like it was made of glass. The first bite was tiny. The second was bigger. By the third, her shoulders dropped, and for the first time, she looked less afraid. "What's your name?" Thomas asked. "Isla," she said quietly. Then she looked up at him and added one line that made his chest tighten. Thomas thought this was just about food. He was wrong. Between small bites, Isla began to talk. Her voice was flat, like she'd told this story too many times. "My mom died last year," she said. Thomas froze, spoon halfway to his mouth. "After that, my dad said I was too much trouble." She looked down, twisting the ear of her stuffed bear. "He left. I haven't seen him since." Thomas felt something burn in his chest. But then she took another bite of bread and stopped. Her eyes softened. "My mama used to bake bread like this," she whispered. He almost smiled, until she finished the sentence. "Before she went to heaven." The words hit him like a punch. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to keep his face steady. All around, the restaurant was still watching. Some with pity, others with annoyance. Thomas pushed back his chair. He stood up, looking over every table in the room. And then he opened his mouth. When Thomas spoke, the room went silent. "You all see a little girl who doesn't belong here," he said, scanning the tables. "But not one of you thought to ask why she's alone." A few diners shifted in their seats. One man cleared his throat and looked away. Thomas pulled out his wallet and set his black card on the table. Her meal's on me, and so is yours. Every single one of you. Gasps, murmurs. This way, he added sharply. You can eat in peace without judging someone who's just hungry. No one said a word. Thomas crouched beside Isla. Come on, he said gently. She slid off her chair, still clutching her bear, and he picked her up like she weighed nothing. They walked past the stunned crowd, straight out into the cool night air. In the car, Thomas started the engine. Before he could shift into gear, Isla turned to him. Can I ask you something? She said softly. He glanced at her. Sure. She looked him in the eye and asked a question he wasn't ready for. In the car, Isla asked the one question that hit him hardest. Are you rich? Thomas kept his eyes on the road. I thought I was, he said quietly. She tilted her head. You're not. He glanced at her in the rear-view mirror. Money can buy food, clothes, a big house, but it can't buy what matters. For a few seconds, neither spoke. Streetlights streaked across the windshield, one after another, like silent reminders. And then it hit him. She wasn't the only one who'd been alone too long. She didn't just need saving. He did too. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. The idea of dropping her off somewhere, anywhere, felt wrong. Not just wrong. Impossible. Thomas pulled the car over to the side of the road. Isla looked at him, confused. He turned toward her, his voice steady but different now. Isla, can I ask you something? She hugged her stuffed bear closer. What? Thomas took a slow breath. And then he asked a question she never expected. Thomas had never done anything like this before. He cleared his throat. Isla, I can help you find somewhere safe to stay tonight. Her eyes narrowed instantly. I don't go with strangers. I get it, Thomas said, keeping his voice calm. But you don't have to trust me right now. Just trust that I won't let anything happen to you. She studied him for a long moment, like she was weighing his words against every broken promise she'd ever heard. I only trust certain people, she muttered. Thomas nodded. Then let me earn that. Just one meal. One safe place. If you don't like it, I'll take you anywhere you want. The car was quiet except for the hum of the engine. Finally, she shifted in her seat, still clutching her stuffed bear. Just for tonight, she said. Thomas gave a small smile. Just for tonight. But deep down, he knew one night wasn't going to be enough. It was the first time she'd slept in a warm bed in weeks. Thomas had set up the guest room in his penthouse. Nothing fancy, just a soft blanket, a small lamp, and a tray with a warm bowl of soup. Isla sat on the edge of the bed, looking around like she didn't quite believe it was real. You can eat, you know, Thomas said gently. She picked up the spoon and took slow bites, eyes fixed on the floor. After a few minutes, she asked quietly, Do you always live like this? Thomas shrugged. Yeah, but it's not as perfect as it looks. She didn't reply at first. Then, almost in a whisper, she said, I wasn't going to come back tonight. He frowned. What do you mean? I was going to run away. For good. She hugged her bear tighter. I didn't think anyone would care. Thomas froze. Her words sank in heavier than anything he'd heard all night. Because in that moment, it hit him. If he hadn't been at that restaurant, if he hadn't said yes, she might not have survived the night. Before falling asleep, Isla asked him one last thing. Her voice was small, almost afraid of the answer. Will I see you again? Thomas didn't hesitate. Yes, you will. But the words came with a weight he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just a casual promise. It was a commitment. One he knew he couldn't break. Isla pulled the blanket up to her chin, nodding like she wanted to believe him. Her stuffed bear was tucked under her arm, and within minutes, her breathing slowed. She was out. Thomas stood at the doorway, watching her sleep. For the first time that night, The chaos in his head went quiet. He could walk away tomorrow and pretend this never happened. Or he could do something that would change everything. For her, and for himself. And as he closed the door, he knew exactly which one he would choose. That night, Thomas learned what it really means to be rich. It wasn't the cars in his garage. It wasn't the expensive suit hanging in his closet. It wasn't the numbers in his bank account. It was this, standing in the quiet hallway of a small guest room, watching a little girl sleep without fear for the first time in who knows how long. Isla's tiny hands clutched her stuffed bear, like it was the most precious thing in the world. Her breathing was steady, her face calm. Thomas leaned against the doorframe, feeling something stir inside him. Something he thought had been gone for years. He realized he'd spent his life chasing the wrong kind of wealth. Real wealth wasn't about what you could buy. It was about what you could give, and who you could give it to. That night, Thomas didn't just help Isla. She helped him too. She reminded him that kindness costs nothing, but means everything. And as he turned off the light and closed the door, one thought stayed with him. Sometimes, the richest people are those who choose kindness.